Hello. So this is the second video for geography that I have done, and we are learning all about landscapes again. So remember what landscapes are? Landscapes generally compose or I'm just trying to stop using big words. Landscapes are made of different landforms. So landforms is like a mountain, a river, or something like that. So with a landscape, and I know we've already talked about this, but I'm going to refresh your brains because this term we're learning all about landscapes. If you don't know landscapes, you don't really understand the term. Okay, so here's a mountain. Well, we'll draw some mountains, and then there's a river, and then there's a forest or trees. That's what a landscape is. It's made of more than just trees. It's a larger area, and it generally has to have a few different things in there. So that's what a landscape is. I didn't get any questions about geography, which is really sad. So maybe I need to email myself to pretend that people have questions. I'm joking. That was just a joke. National identity. So we looked a little bit about national identity, especially about Australia, looking at the Great Barrier Reef and Uluru. So national identity is simply an icon, landform, landscape that reflects, the life of many Australians. So we looked at Uluru, and the reasons why Uluru is an iconic landscape, and it's not just because it's unique. Okay, but it also represents a lot of things about Australia. So the first thing is, it is unique. I mean, you can't, if you're in Paris, you can't go, oh, let's go to Uluru, or let's go to something similar to Uluru. There's nothing around there. So unique is the first thing, and it represents the outback. Australia's a big country, all right, and it's got hundreds of kilometres of nothing. I've flown over the Simpson Desert a few times. Beautiful, but there's not much there, at least from what I've seen flying. What's another thing? So the outback, Indigenous, it represents our Indigenous heritage. Indigenous heritage represents our Indigenous heritage and those sort of things. So when we're talking about national identity, we need to try to understand what that means, and it generally means what does it reflect of Australia. So the Great Barrier Reef, all right, it's the coast, it's unique, it's in Queensland for the most part, and so that's why it's also a national identity as well. All right, that's good. Now the next thing is different values. So these landscapes have different values. Some of these landscapes make a lot of money. The Sydney landscape especially, you walk into the city, it's beautiful. I quite enjoy a day out, and it's got a lot of economic value for a lot of people. But it's also got aesthetic. Walking around Darling Harbour is beautiful. It's a very nice place. So seeing the Opera House, Sydney is a very nice, it's aesthetic. It's a beautiful thing to look at. So these different landscapes have different measures of economic value, how much money they can make. That's what economic means. So when you see the word economic, you can tell your parents today, I know what economic means, and it simply means making money. Economic value. So it has a lot of value, a lot of these places. But some places might have a ton of aesthetic value, but not so much economic. Aesthetic just means it looks beautiful. People go there to see the place, but it doesn't make a lot of money. Blue Mountains is beautiful, and I haven't looked at how much money it makes, but I would probably say not as much as some other places. So we've also looked at spiritual and cultural, and we looked at how Uluru is a really interesting case study. Some people look at it aesthetically and say, "Oh, it's beautiful. I'm going to climb it." Other people look at it and say, "Spiritual. This belongs to the Aboriginals, so I'm not going to climb it." And I know, not everyone agrees with it, but Ayers Rock, or Uluru, I should say, has been shut down for walking or climbing. I think later this year or later next year. And then we started to touch on land degradation. Now that's another big word we learn in geography. And I know we jump all over the shop. Now we're talking about land degradation. We've moved away from culture. Land degradation. So what does that even mean? It simply means the land gets worse. All right, that's all it means. It's a big word. It just means the land's worse. If you could grow 100 kilos of wheat, or say you could grow 100 strawberries 1 year, and then 10 years later you can only grow 50, your land's being degraded, your quality is worse. So that's all land degradation means, and there's many reasons why land gets worse, why it degrades. One thing in particular is, I'll draw this. So this is the Amazon. This is the Amazon, okay? And the soil is pretty good. I can't even draw a smiley face. It's really good, okay? But what happens if we cut down the trees, all right, and we just have soil, and then we grow our crop? We've changed the landscape a lot, and there's a balance. There's a balance there, and we're changing the landscape dramatically. You change the quality of the soil, all right? Everything is in a balance. Okay, we talk about this quite a lot, a balance, all right? Everything is in a perfect balance, and we humans need to be more careful with this balance. So we looked at Queensland and looked how they're clearing a lot of trees and how that's having an impact on the Great Barrier Reef. Now, the reason is because they put fertilizer. They put a lot of chemicals on their crops, and that's fine. We need to do that. But what happens is when it rains, the chemicals go into the water, and then the water, into the waterways like the rivers, and then it goes to the sea, where it's dealt with by the ecosystem, but in a bad way. Remember that balance. So the problem with these chemicals is they generally have a lot of nitrogen. Nitrogen creates algal blooms, or it creates this green stuff. Have you ever had a pond or something like that, or even just left water out, and you see there's algae everywhere? That's what it is, this microscopic green stuff, and that can cause really bad stuff to happen. As we watched in the video, the algae blooms are causing the coral reefs to be destroyed. So I hope you've learnt a little bit, and I hope I've been able to slow the whole geography concepts we've been learning down a little bit. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, you can email me at my email address, and yeah, all the best.